Welcome once again to the Ben Smith Coaches Show here on the Bear Network, BCHS.TV. As we get ready for wrestling season, we're going to talk all about that. Mind you, you can watch all of our interviews and with our coaches and our players throughout the season here on the Bear Network, BCHS.TV, which will also be on YouTube. That's where we post all of those. I'd like to thank Mr. Gwen Schroyer and the students here who make all these production shows possible for us here in Studio H12 on the campus of Bradley Central High School. And Ben, the first thing I'd like to ask you is, like I start with the coaches first of the year, last year. Talk about that, just a brief recap of how things went last year and what.
Sure.
You're never happy until you win it all as a state championship.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, that's kind of our culture. That's what you've kind of spoke to is, last season. And again, it's great to be back. Thanks for having us. Seems like yesterday we walked off the set in February and here we are again. But we finished state runner-up in both the preseason competition or in both the postseason competitions last year. 34-28 in the state dual finals came down to the last match, one of the most exciting matches I've ever been a part of definitely as a coach. And then even in just wrestling in general, it was just a fun match. Probably one of my, I don't say eyes and me's a whole lot, but we're probably one of our better coaching performances, and we still lost. So, I was super proud of that effort, and we threw everything at them and just couldn't. 100 things had to go right. We got about 98 of them, but it was one of those times. That was a great team that would have won state championships and any other year, but just not last year. And then we finished up. I almost felt like we underachieved a little bit in the individuals. And again, I'm hypercritical, like we were talking about before. Probably not hypercritical, but I'm very honest with myself, and I'm also honest with those around me. I felt like we could have 10 state medalists, which usually means we'll finish up with 8 or 9. We ended up with 6, and we still finished state runner-up. I thought we'd be a little bit closer and in the mix than what we would in the individuals. But I think the state dual loss took a little bit more wind out of ourselves than maybe what we'd have thought. But that's just some things that we're going to have to focus on and have went to work focusing on in this off season is being able to rebound. Because that's a life skill. I mean, disappointing things happen in life, and you got to be able to bounce back from that. And I do think that factored into it. I know it was hard for me, for a while. But yeah, we had 2 state runner-up finishes last year. There's a lot of coaches that coach their entire lives and never make the state finals. And we've got 26 state titles and 14 state runner-ups. That's a lot. Oh, yeah. But it also we're pretty hungry going into the off season, so that's probably where we're segueing into. But last year was a great year, but it's behind us. You can't power, you can't sail your ship with last year's wind,
That's
so
right.
we're moving forward. So.
That's right. Well, like you say, a lot of coaches would love to be in your position there and have the success that you've had as a wrestler and as a coach, assistant coach and head coach here at Bradley. And Cleveland's going to be one of your top competitors again this year. Sure. Outside of this area, anybody locally outside of Cleveland, or are you looking at Middle Tennessee or Knoxville area for a powerhouse team besides us?
I mean, we know. I mean, I like I said before, I really focus on our canoe and paddling it, and I say that more publicly than I do privately. But I mean, I'm more of a film watcher and state watcher than what I project and then what people maybe perceive of me. But yeah, I mean, I never really look past what's in front of us. But when you're 3.3 miles from corner to corner of those buildings, apart from your biggest rival, you never look past that. Right. But I also am very aware of what we and everyone else have graduated. What I don't know is what move-ins and transfers and who's hurt and who's not. I don't pay that much attention because I'm not on social media and I don't get on the forums and the blogs. But based off of the way things ended last year, obviously Cleveland's the champion until someone beats them. I think we're as good, if not better, than we were last year, especially when I look at our lineup over the past couple weeks and the way practices have shaked out. But I'm not naive in the fact that Wilson Central Summit, which have built themselves into be traditional powerhouses, they've done it great. They've new schools that have opened up within the past 2 decades, and they've started from the ground up, and they've done a great job. And then Dobbins Bennett up in Upper East Tennessee, and then Blackman. I mean, those are the 6 that I'm always looking at.
And they're looking at you the same way.
100%. Cleveland's. Everybody wants to beat Bradley in Cleveland, but everybody really wants to beat Bradley, and that's the way it's always been, and that's not going to change. And I'm very aware of that. I think Cleveland, Wilson Central, Summit, Bradley. You wrestled that state tournament 4 times,
Yeah.
10 times. I mean, and that's kudos to Summit and kudos to Wilson Central, and it's nothing against my program or Wilson Central, but everybody's really good this year in those top 4.
Well, that's what you like. That's what you want. You know, you want to play the best. Got to play the best and beat the best to be the best, as they old saying goes.
And I feel like Cleveland and us, I'm not going to mention the private schools, they're not in our division, but the Chattanooga-Cleveland area has elevated. Of course, there's teams that have been good across the state for 40, 50 years, but the game has changed, and people have taken the model that our area has used to achieve this level of traditional success. And man, the state, like wrestling in general, is just getting better. And it's a fun time to coach, but it's also a frustrating time to coach because, like I said, last year's team would have won some state titles in the 2000s and probably in the 90s. They were good, but hey, it is what it is.
Well, and you don't want to be a mediocre program that nobody cares about. And it's obvious when you come to the MAC, you see the house full of wrestling fence and all that. It's great. You mentioned 6 medalists. How many of those 6 do you have coming back, or what are you looking for in your program? I mean, where's your strength lie? In the upper weights, lower weights, middle class weights, or?
It's like last year's team. I mean, like our strength lies in, we're an older team this year. This is the team that in 2018, when they were 8th graders, I was looking at. We kind of seen them coming down the pipe. And so the majority of those 6 starters or those 6 medalists are back. The majority of the guys that, in my opinion, were sectional and regional champions, that maybe, whether it be a draw or a weight cut or, they just didn't get the transactional result that they or we felt like they deserved at the state tournament. You get what you deserve in a sense, but, there's a lot of potential medalists. There's a lot of potential state points that we were looking at last year that you can't hang your hat on, but I know those kids are state quality kids. And most of the state knows, like, man, Wade Brooks and Knox Watson and these guys, they could and should be state medalists by now. They're not, and that's okay. And I'm not judging them by that. And this is, again, honest conversation that we've had with them. But our lineup is full of kids that have been starting since they were freshmen and sophomores. And and that's a strength. So from 120, and I'm going to say 120 because Bryson's going 120 right now, but he's certified at 113. He's our defending state champion. From 120 to 195, let's go. Yeah, I'll put those 10 weight classes. Let's go.
Anybody.
Got the bookends, the 6 and the 13 and the 220 and the heavyweight or whatever you want. And again, this is a public show, but I don't know who watches it, but there's no secrets. Our bookends are where I'm really focusing on as a coach. Those are 2 areas where we're traditionally very strong. We've got some names that maybe people don't recognize or realize, and they're young, but the past 16, 17 days of practice on top of the 10-week preseason, on top of the 30-week postseason, has led me to believe that those bookends are going to be way better than what people think they are. And so I'm excited about that.
Off the top of your head, do you know what your breakdown is of the classes, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, or is that?
We are very, I have 13 seniors counting the girls that are 2, so 11 boys, 2 girls. Not all of those will start, okay? We have a program. I love the fact that we have a program where we don't have a lot of attrition. This 11 boy senior class when they were freshmen was about 15. So we've lost 4 over the year, but 6 or 8 of those will start. Maybe 10. I don't know. I mean, we start challenge matches tomorrow.
I was going to ask about
those.
Yeah,
so we start challenge matches tomorrow. So we could have 10 seniors in the lineup. We could have 6. I mean, that's the God's honest truth there. But numbers-wise, we've got 51 boys. We've got 21 girls. So we've got 72 kids total in our program.
Talk about that girls program. I mean, it sort of started 2 or 3 years ago from almost scratch.
Man,
I remember. Pontes.
Sure,
Bree Pontes, and some of those girls there. And I mean, we were just a fledgling, baby program, basically. Now.
You're talking to a girl dad, so I light up when I talk about my girls, man, because my girls are just awesome. Coaching, so we went from 2 to 4 to 9. We had 10 at one point last year. We were able, you have to have 7 out of the 12 weight classes to compete in dual meets last year. We were able to wrestle in the region duels. We had some COVID flare back up and hit us, but we were only able to send 7 of our 9 girls to the region championships last year. And they placed 3rd. They did okay. They didn't qualify. Tullahoma and Cleveland finished ahead of them. And they weren't able to go to the state tournament, but they won, 3-4 matches within those 7 every time that they wrestled. But I really feel like the approach that we have taken with the girls program, a slow burn, so to speak, really solidifying that foundation. And Dr. Cash and I have spoke a lot about it, and Coach Jackson and Mr. Spangler and I have spoken a lot about it. I really want this to be, Bradley Wrestling has been around since 1973 as far as the guys' side of it. The girls' side of it, this is the beginning. This is the 1973 through 78. We're really focusing on that foundation. And we've doubled every year, and we've tripled heading into this year. Coach Kinsey and Coach Moore, Coach Byer and Coach Bennett, they do an amazing job with our girls program. I kind of act as a general manager. My assistants would tell you I don't delegate well. I hover quite a bit.
A helicopter coach, so to speak.
Maybe, which I'm not really like that as a dad a whole lot. It's crazy, but I was mentored very well by Coach Soggs and Coach Jackson and Coach Belcher, and I try to mentor them very well because there's going to be a time when I'm not here, and I want them, and there may be a time where my girls are wrestling for them, and I want them to be great. But no, our girls, we had our first female state medalist last year, and Gabby Bennett, state runner-up. A point away from a state championship, so she's on the board now. We're getting the Wall of Fame updated. She's on it. But man, my girls program, we're going to have a full lineup come January. We've got 21 girls. We have wrestle-offs for our girls. The wrestle-offs for them start tomorrow. And man, it's awesome. 23, we're down to 21, but since we've hit the mats, we've hovered at 21 girls consistently.
Well, 5 years ago, we wouldn't talk about girls wrestling here at Bradley, and a lot of schools wear it now. Around the area, other schools with wrestling girls program. Oh, Cleveland has one over there.
Yeah.
And so it's statewide now.
Statewide, yeah. And our area has kind of been behind the state on girls wrestling. And Coach Boston over there, he's done a great job. They got 3rd in the state last year with the first-year program. Now they kind of were building their program, kind of not behind the scenes, but everything they do, it's quality. They do a great job. Kudos to them. But he was able to produce a full lineup last year, and he had some really tough girls. We practiced together quite a bit last year, so that rivalry is still there on the girls' side of it. It just hasn't turned into what it has on the guys' side yet.
It will.
But it will. But they were 3rd in the state last year in the duels, and they had some medalists and some champions, and we had some medalists and a runner-up. Walker Valley has started their program this year. But the strength in the state really still kind of lies in that middle Tennessee, and then even a little bit in that upper East Tennessee. But our pocket, the mecca of wrestling in Tennessee, in my opinion, and I know I'm going to hurt some feelings here, is in the Cleveland, Chattanooga area, and it won't be long. We're catching up fast. Josh, and I think we proved it last year. Like we're here to stay, and it's going to be fun.
Well, let's take a look at your schedule now. You're talking about having the challenge matches tomorrow.
Sure.
And then the girls have their wrestle-offs and things like that. So your start is going to be, when will you officially start your season, and what kind of in-season tournaments do you predict you're going to have?
Yes, so we start, we have 2 JV events next week when we're out of school. So the Monday and Wednesday we'll have JV all over the place. We'll break for Thanksgiving. We'll come back the day after Thanksgiving, and then I'll have 2 teams, my varsity boys and then my best backups. We'll be at the same dual tournament at Hickson together, opening up. So, 2 of the 16 teams will be Bradley teams. They'll have us separated. But our girls will be at Greenville at the Battle for the Cure, which is a really neat event they put on up there. All the money's donated to cancer research and all that. But that's Johnson City, Science Hill, Greenville, that area is where there's some really good girls wrestling. And so we're opening up there. So we'll have 5 events next week, and then when we come back from Thanksgiving, and it's not, basketball, they're home and away all the time, both semesters. Our schedule is a lot more condensed in the fact we have 5 away and 5 home. So when we start into our home schedule, our first home match, man, if you didn't ask me, I'd have been able to tell you. But we have Baylor away. That traditionally Baylor's very early in the schedule. And they're, pound for pound, maybe the number 1 ranked team in the state. I know Cleveland's got something to say about that, and we do too, but that's our biggest non-region opponent and our biggest non-divisional opponent, but they're the second week of January or December. But we're not really focusing on them. I try not to look crazy, far ahead, because a lot can happen between now and then. And I'm not, when we got beat by Cleveland by 35 points in January, I wasn't worried about it. I mean, I saw what I needed to see that night. I've gotten better at looking down the road, which, I used to be a guy that didn't want to lose a takedown, didn't want to lose this, didn't want to lose that. But like in coaching, things are so uncontrollable. You have to have a down the road perspective. And we wrestled Baylor early for a reason, because it's about that first weekend in February and that third and fourth weekend in February.
What is your biggest challenge right now? I know these are young kids; they're growing kids. They eat like there's no tomorrow. Are some of them going to bump up obviously in weight? I mean, is it hard for them to maintain what their best wrestling weight would be, or what is your challenge as a head coach right now?
I mean, wrestling's wrestling. That stuff doesn't change. Yeah. My biggest challenge right now is we have 72 kids in the room.
That's a lot of kids.
That's a lot of kids, and that's 2 40 by 40 mats, and we've outgrown our building. That's a challenge. And so staggering the practices, this group on, this group off, and maintaining, and like I'm not stupid. I know what I'm known for across the state, and that's intensity, and that's work. I run a good practice. Well, I think I'm a pretty good technician too, but the way that Bradley Central High School head coaches run their practice and what we're known for, it's trying to figure out that ebb and flow of laying out the foundational techniques and skills and drills those first 3 or 4 weeks of practice, but also keeping that high pace on, this group off, because we have a proximity issue. I got to keep kids, I got, 72 kids, that's what, 36 groups, wrestling, and there's only 18 circles. So we're doubled up. You got 2 kids wrestling, and then a kid falls into the other one. So we're trying to manage that. Weight descent is always the hardest part. Football just ended, so I've got kids that, like Knox Watson's going to be my 70-pounder if he wins wrestle-offs. He's 185 pounds right now. Wow. He's got it to lose all day, but we have to lose it the right way. Yeah. But no, man, our preseason was awesome. Our off season was awesome. I've had very little social issues, and then I just got my eligibility report back. As far as I knew everybody was eligible, but I have Penny Howell dig a little deeper. Of 72 kids, I've only got 1 kid that is ineligible till January, and then I've got 1 that's got to finish up a credit recovery class. But in her own words, and Penny is like me, she's very honest and she's got very high standards. She said, "This is the best academic team that I've ever seen you had." Really? Kudos to you. And so I got to brag on my guys about that yesterday, which, excellence breeds excellence. If they're excellent in the classroom, that means they're doing little things right. Exactly. I think that's a good sign that we're trending in the right direction on the mat. But space, weight, and then, man, I've got 2 girls that are under the age of 2. I'm getting my master's degree, and it's wrestling season. Like, man, just trying to sleep and be rested. So what do you do in your spare time? Yeah, with your girls. Homework, right? And then try to work out a little bit. But there ain't a whole lot of spare time in my world right now.
Well, I understand that. We haven't mentioned yet, but who are the main assistant coaches? I know Coach Blackman's here on campus with you, and who's going to be? I know you have a lot.
Yeah, I have a lot. It's ridiculous, and we do that so that we can legally have the people that practice. Like, wrestling's cool because you wrestle with your kids, and to legally have those coaches in the room, they have to be on roster. And so we've got a bunch of coaches that don't coach necessarily. They just show up and they legally can wrestle our kids.
They want to be part of the program.
They want to be part of the program. That's the beautiful thing about programs like ours and others that are successful. But my main assistant is Bryant Blackman, and my other main assistant is Austin Matthews, and they're amazing. I mean, I have... I do some leadership classes here at the school, and, I'm real big on strengths and weaknesses and personalities and kind of filling in the blanks here and there. And, man, these guys, my 2 faculty, and Austin will graduate in May. He just got engaged. He's getting married in October. He'll graduate in May, and I'm pretty sure we're going to hire him. So he'll be on campus really soon. But these guys are they think like I think, and they move like I move. And I remember Coach Logson telling me, you know, when I came in as an assistant, he said, I'll know you'll be ready to be a head coach when every day you wake up and at some point really high on your priority list is what needs to be done to make Bradley Wrestling better, and you do it. And I don't have to tell you. And those guys, those are my guys, you know. I mean, you name another head coach at a program like mine that takes a week off to go on a mission trip in his preseason phase. And I love Reuter and I love Damon, but those guys wouldn't do that, you know. But that's my assistant. I trust them so much, you know, that I could leave tomorrow and this thing keeps going. You know, that's how good they are.
Well, that's you've got a quality program built, and everybody knows what to expect and what to do to keep it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hard to work for sometimes, but I'm also pretty fun to work with. So maybe they like hanging around to make fun of me or something. But I've got great assistants there. The girls, Coach Kinsey and Coach Bauer. Coach Kinsey, he's getting her master's degree in education. She's at Oak Grove as a special ed assistant right now. So she's in the system, and she'll be with us soon. And then Coach Moore, she's graduating from Lee really soon. So we'll have both our girls coaches. And I think Coach Moore, she's in English, and she's high school English. I think she'll be here soon. So. But yeah, Coach Blackman and I and Coach Matthews are kind of the, you know, the GM, the figurehead, the front office, so to speak, of Bradley Wrestling.
You got to have that, you know, as always there.
Sure.
Well, Coach, we'd like to thank you for your time again.
Yeah, man.
And we'll skip next week since it is the fall break, or not fall break, it's Thanksgiving break. We'll skip and pick this up again the first week after that.
Sure.
And we'll do a week of program, and we'll have a couple of wrestlers with him
Let's
this
go.
time, and maybe we'll have some of those girls for sure.
Let's go. Yeah.
And some of the guys too, and throughout the season there, and enjoy it. I mentioned there. I'd like to thank Mr. Schroyer and the students here at Brandon Central High School in H12 for making all our shows possible for you. Watch them on BCHS.tv through YouTube. So until next time, we'll say God bless for now, and go Bears and bear it.
There you go.